disgrace. Aboard the ships, we're leaving this place.
Well, today we're going to begin here at the African Resistance History Museum, and the topic actually is Igala Eschatology. And Igala Eschatology actually deals with end time teachings. And I know we've heard so many times growing up, and for those who are growing up now, they're still hearing, the end times and the last days, but we haven't given it form. And so we have to give it form so people understand exactly what the end of what and the last days of what. First of all, we need to consider the fact that we've been at war for practically 500 years. And in that war, it was actually a battle in so many areas of human activity. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. All of those are the areas in which we've been fighting. And the problem has been that we've been using the formula given to us by the enemy as to how to fight him. And so what Igala Eschatology does is we build upon the weapons that have been successful, that before the enemy of our people got the weapons and refried it and gave it back to us and told us to use that on him. We should have known from day one that that wasn't going to work. But since we didn't, we're in a time now where as we stand at the end of Euro-Gentile world dominion, in the last days of European world domination, then certain things would be occurring in the midst of us. There was a prophecy concerning us coming into this time. And so in dealing with the eschatology and in dealing with this warfare, I just want to give an example, and I'm going to call it how to live. Okay, how to live, and just demonstrate how this book, what we call the Bible, is actually a survival book for Northeast African people who have been known by many different names. Some have been known as Israelites. Some have been known as the GOLAH. The GOLAH is actually the Israelites who've been forced out of their land from 70 AD throughout time. GOLAH. Now, when you look it up, it's probably going to say the Jewish diaspora. But I'm here to tell you, it's the Hebrew diaspora. And the Hebrews have been forced out of the land. The last time it was around 70 AD. And we've been dispersed into the interior of Africa. But now the key is to take the wisdom of the writings that have been plagiarized from some of our ancient writings, from our historical narratives, and given back to us. It's in English, and I'm going to deal with it from English. I'm not trying to give everybody another language to speak, but there's a particular thought associated with the writings that is consistent. And so I'm going to begin in the book of Deuteronomy. Remember now, I said that we were at war and still are in 9 different areas of human activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And in order to live and live more abundantly, there are certain things we need to consider. I'm going to begin in Deuteronomy, the 8th chapter, beginning with the first verse. And there's a caption that reads, Moses looks backward and onward. So you hear us talk about history a lot, but a lot of folks don't focus on destiny. So in this caption where it says he looked backward and onward, he looked in the past and he looked in the future. Here we are in the future, and we still got to do the same thing. It's the same concept that we recognize in the Sankofa bird.
You got no charges, hands off. We them, free them.
Okay, looking backwards in order to go forward. Okay, now Deuteronomy beginning at the 8th verse, the 8th chapter beginning at the first verse, it reads, all the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live, multiply, and go in and possess the land which the Lord swore to give unto your fathers, meaning your ancestors. So now, there are people who say, well, the Old Testament, first of all, that's a misnomer. It's not an Old Testament. This is the Hebrew canon. It's just as new today as it was then. It's a Hebrew canon, meaning the Hebrew writings. And the only people who actually wants us to consider these as old are the people who want you to take what they have plagiarized from our original writings and to interpret it the way they do. When we do that, we keep losing, and we keep wondering why we keep losing. Why are we fighting each other? Why are we doing this and doing that? Well, it's because of the tactics that he's used, and we listened to him, and we did the things that he has told us to do. We've interpreted things the way he's told us to interpret it, and that's the problem. So this verse teaches us here, it says, all the commandments, meaning all the instructions, which I command thee this day, shall ye observe to do, that ye may live. I think it's important that we live, because the opposite ain't good for your health. We need to understand that, okay? Now, verse 2, and thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to test thee, to humble thee and to test thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou would keep his commandments or not. The commandments, a lot of folks get caught up on it because they consider commandments, like I said, because of the European interpretation, it's old. They say God was mad when God gave us this stuff and he got angry. God is not an emotional man or woman. So you should get that out of your mind that God can get mad. It's just, that's a human concept that the Most High is just incapable of getting mad. There are concepts, there are blessings and curses that are put in the universe, in the earth. There are universal corrective forces. God don't get mad and decide, well, I'm gonna get this one because he said something. It don't work like that. That's Greco-Roman, European, non-cosmic thought. We have to get them out of our heads in order for us to become the great and powerful people that we really are. The weapon that he's used effectively is divide and conquer. And he don't have to stand between us and divide us. He gives us these choices. You know, we become AME, become Baptist, become Kappa Alpha Psi, we become Omega Psi Phi. And there was a time when we didn't have all these choices. Some of us are Cowboys Nation. Some of us are Pittsburgh Steeler Nation. We got all these choices of things to be, so we don't have unity of mind when it comes to our culture. And people think what I'm reading here, Deuteronomy, is actually religion, but this is culture. And so when we have unity of culture, unity of mind, nobody can conquer us. So that's where it starts first. But this instruction on how to live is very important because just like I said, the opposite defeats the purpose, right? So going to the third verse, and he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers, neither did your ancestors know, that he might make thee to know that man doeth not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doeth man live. Now, I know I've said a lot of doeth and knoweth and all of that. That's Middle English. There'll come a time when we can get rid of that too. But I want us to understand these instructions. It says that man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord. And remember what I said earlier. This book, and I would suggest the King James Version of the Bible, and a 1967 Schofield edition, if you can access it, because it's very hard to find. 1967, if not that, a 1945, if not that, a 1917, and it's getting rarer as you go backwards. But from 1945, certain things occurred in world history that's in the footnotes that's very important. The 1967 edition, it has additional things that occurred in history in the footnotes that had not occurred in 1945. But by 1967, it did. And it's relevant to the instructions. But the word as written is so very important that we understand. So now, if man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord, let's see if we can find some instructions on food, okay? Because I think we need food to live. And let's go to Genesis, the first chapter, the 29th verse. It's where you find words that come out of the mouth of the Lord, which is here in these instructions. And it's not limited to these instructions. Because I know somebody going to look at this thing and say, oh man, we got instruction in the Quran. Well, the Holy Quran does have instruction, but this has instructions too. As a matter of fact, it had it before the Holy Quran. And so I'm not taking anything from it. I'm not diminishing it. There's the Bhagavad Gita. There's a lot of holy writings, but I'm dealing with the people, the English, the Euro-Gentile who came here and sent his missionaries in, and the missionaries tied the people up with this book. And the people are still tied because they have no idea where the instructions are on how to live. They can tell you about Jesus, but they can't tell you how to live in this book. Now, like I said, we need food to live. Let's see how food is defined in the first chapter of the first book in this Bible. So Genesis, the first chapter, 29th verse. I think that's page 4 in this book. And when I mentioned this book, I'm reading from Schofield Reference Bible, a 1967 edition. Genesis, first chapter, 29th verse says, and God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for food. Now, this is a plant-based diet. This is what it's called now. I'm going to read it again. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for food. So, as we hear now, the plant-based diet is the best diet for people. Why? Because here we are, 2026, people just discovering right now that there is a plant-based diet thousands of years ago that was recommended for us to eat from. And this is where we get our nutrition, okay? You don't have to kill an animal in order to get nutrition, okay? The animal needs nutrition too. Where does he get it? From the herbs, from the vegetation. The same God that gave us these instructions, he provided the same thing for the animals. And so we don't have to become animals, okay? But there is a body of knowledge that says we began consuming meat, or we began consuming the beast when we fell to the level of a beast. But in the divine instructions, the very first instructions that God gave to the man that he created, this is what he said to eat so that we will live. Now, how important is that? It's very important. What's the benefits of a plant-based diet? What's the benefit of Genesis 1 and 29? Well, a plant-based diet is good for heart health, okay? It lowers cholesterol. It reduces the risk of heart attack, okay? A high fiber content protects the digestive tract. It requires less land, less water per calorie to produce food. The alternative, the meat-based diet, is high in saturated fats, and it clogs your arteries. And once your arteries are clogged, all kinds of other sicknesses fall upon us, okay? And so the doctors, they don't try to put people on a plant-based diet. The majority of them are going to give you some type of chemical to manage your health, okay? So they are rewarded when you eat a meat-based diet. And not only that, but when you eat things that are drugs masquerading as food, okay? Here we are in the end times, the last days of European world dominion. So we need to free our stomachs from his diet that enriches his doctors and his lawyers, okay? It's no benefit that you sue them and get all this money, or your family get all the money and you're sick of who knows what, and you're dying, okay? So the instructions, these commandments that I mentioned earlier, it ain't that God got mad and did this and did that, but the instructions, the commandments, when you hear law, this European has interpreted law to mean, thou shalt not, and all of those things. But the word law is improper, and it should be instructions. So these are the instructions in order to live more abundantly. Now, I'm going to go to Leviticus 19, because not only do we have instructions for how to have a very rewarding life from eating properly and not eating the way the European interpreted for us to eat, but Leviticus 19 gives us some instructions too. That's page 152 in my Schofield Reference Bible. And Leviticus 19 and 19 reads on this wise: Ye shall keep my statute. Thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with a diverse kind. Thou shalt not sow thy field with mixed seed, neither shall a garment mixed of linen and woolen come upon thee. This is 100% cotton. The instructions are to wear 100% cotton, linen, or silk. It mentions wool too. But do not combine the fabric. You know the twins, Polly and Esther, because it'll kill you. And that's what people are dying from. The mixed fabric, what it does is it causes the chemicals that they use to make it to seep into your bloodstream, especially when you sweat. And so it's so important that we understand when they make these clothes that can stretch, and it seems like they're really appealing to your convenience and your comfort, but it's killing you. We need to go back to the instructions that we were given by our ancestors in order to avoid the sicknesses, the things that these people get rich on, and they don't care. They, as long as you have insurance, that's what they want. But and it's like this. It's more important to have assurance than insurance so that we can live the way we're supposed to live. We again, remember now, we are in this war. So we need to understand the weapons that they've been using to kill us. If they can cause you to want to eat stuff that'll kill you, to wear clothes that'll kill you, then they're covering all the bases in all 9 areas of human activity. Remember all those bases again: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. So I'm going to go to Deuteronomy 22. Deuteronomy 22 and 11. And it reads on this wise. It says, "Thou shalt not wear a garment of different sorts, as of woolen and linen together." More than one place where it's written in here that we are to avoid mixed fabric. We are definitely to avoid the twins poly and ester, rayon and dacron, all those kind of things. Because why? It's killing us. So now, if in warfare you find a way to limit the exposure to the poison, then you're prolonging your life and the lives of your family. Okay? That's why it's so important that at the end of European world dominion, we give him back his clothing, because we are at the end of a time when we do exactly what he says. He says, "Where are the twins, Polly and Esther?" We put it on. He says, "Where are the other twin, Rayon and Dacron?" We put it on. Okay? But the instructions here says, do not put on. It couldn't even tell you Rayon and Dacron because nobody was stupid enough to invent it back then. They invented it for us now. So we got to be wise enough. Okay? There's a saying that we should be as wise as the serpent and humble as the dove. That's played out, y'all. We got to be wiser than the serpent and more humble than the dove. Wiser than the serpent and more humble than the dove. And we are capable of that. We need to understand the victory has been given to us. We've just been using the wrong examples, and we've been using the wrong weapons, and we've been eating the wrong food, and we've been doing things that we call lifestyle that is actually a death style. We got to put an end to that, because why? We are at the end time, the end of listening to a mad doctor that's been killing us and our families. So what else is there? The instructions that I wrote concerning this mixed fabric is that when you don't wear those mixed fabric and those chemical fabric that we put on our bodies, it protects our bladder, our colon, our kidney, and the endocrine system. These are carcinogenic material, and they migrate out of the fiber into the skin when you sweat, and it gets into the bloodstream. It's absorbed into the bloodstream. The bladder, the colorectal cancer risk, the kidney and the liver, all are affected by these azo dyes. These are dyes that are common in certain fabrics. We need to really be aware of this stuff. They also have forever chemicals, PFAS, PFAS. Again, they expose you to kidney and testicular cancer. These forever chemicals are common in school uniforms, raincoats, and because they make those things water resistant, and they put a chemical on it to make that happen. And if you think about it, if you're in a raincoat, especially in the summertime, and it's hot, you begin to sweat, and you put that stuff into your system. Some of it has formaldehyde. Formaldehyde actually gives you, exposes you to leukemia and respiratory cancer. We can't do that, y'all. So from there, I'm going to go to the book of Luke, because these instructions are very important. It's so very important. But you're going to have people who say, well, Jesus didn't say that, or, he ain't even talking about Jesus. So I'm going to go to Luke, the 10th chapter at the, I'm going to start with the 24th verse. Luke, the 10th chapter, the 24th verse. And it says, "For I tell you that many prophets and kings have desired to see those things which you see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which you hear, and have not heard them." What I'm telling you right now are things that you have not heard, doctors have not heard, kings have not heard, okay? And it's very important, because these things, we hear it when we hear about a plant-based diet. And if you take to, do a search on these things, you will find that these things are very important. But guess what? We have to teach these things to our children. You can't just leave the phone in their hands and expect them to find these things that'll help them live. Because if not, what'll happen is, like a call I got today, or a message I got today, where a dear friend of mine sent me the news report where a cousin of hers died yesterday, okay, or last night. And we'll hear more and more of our people dying at younger and younger age, because why? They're not learning the things that will keep them alive. I'm not just talking about dying from the diseases, because some of these diseases last a long time and then you die. The key is to avoid them. And there's a way to prevent them and to heal if you catch them in time. So, but follow these instructions here.
If you got charges, bring them. Sing them.
Or listen to this. It says in verse 25, "And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tested him." Who did he test? Tested Yeshua. Yeshua is who most people now call Jesus. Okay? "And tested him, saying, Master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said unto him," he being Yeshua ben Yosef, he being Jesus the Christ, said to him, "What is written in the law?" Okay? What is written in the law? Now, understand, I was saying earlier, we got these things from the Europeans. Yeshua didn't speak English, and the people didn't even ask the question in English. But I just for the sake of instruction here, what Yeshua responded was, "Ma ha Torah." What's in the Torah? Because the Torah is the law. Ma ha Torah. Okay? Ma ha Torah umeret. Exactly. Ma ha Torah umeret. That's Hebrew. And he asked them, what is written in the law? So Yeshua, even his inquiry was, are you reading the law? Because if you understood the law, you wouldn't even have to ask the question. Most of our people today are not reading the law because they've been convinced that Jesus came and the law is no more. Well, Jesus said, what's in the law? Why would he ask what was in the law if he came and the law is no more? It's because that statement that the law is no more is a Greco-Roman fabrication. The law is as old as the law of gravity, and we need to understand that. So the guy answered. He said, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself." And he said unto him, he being Yeshua, said unto him, "Thou hast answered right. This do, and thou shalt live." So this is Yeshua, this is Jesus telling you how to live. He said, what's in the law? So this instructions that we find in the book, in the Hebrew canon, this is where the instructions are. Because when he asked Yeshua, what do I do? How do I? Let's go to the question again. He said, "Master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?" Now, when he asked, what do I do to inherit eternal life? Yeshua asked, what is written in the law? Now, we need to understand that the answer that he gave was in two parts, because the first part of the answer came from the book of Deuteronomy, 6th chapter, the 4th through the 9th verse. And I'll go there. (225). Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter, 4th through the 9th verse. And it reads this way: "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one, not three. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might." Very specific here. "And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children. And thou shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou sittest down, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. Thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hands, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the post of thy house and on thy gate." That's how important it is. You should write it on the gate coming into your house. Put it on a string on your hand if you need to. You should talk of them every day, and we're to teach them diligently to our children. Now the question becomes, are we teaching these instructions on how to live to our children? And understand, even though he asked about eternal life, he ain't talking about eternal death, because there are people who think eternal life begins when you're dead. We can't think like that anymore. Eternal life begins when you come alive, and you should never die. Nothing truly dies, it only changes form. So eternal life begins when you awaken from a deep sleep, okay? So here we are in 2026, and I'm announcing, and I'm not the only one, others who have done it too, that we have to now give this bandit, because he's a bandit from stealing your time, he's stealing your knowledge, he's stealing the legacy of our ancestors who taught them. When we first came into contact with the European, it was about 800 BC, and they came begging and pleading to learn the great wisdom that our ancestors had. They had to pay in silver goblets in many cases. They had to wait 20 years in many cases in order to be taught this great wisdom. And remember, Moses, who is accredited with writing the first 5 books, who's accredited with writing the Torah, Moses was taught in the temples of Kemet before he discovered, wow, I'm an Israelite. I was taught in the temples of America before I discovered, I'm Igala. Okay, and so we make it's not a mystery. It's not something so mysterious and spooky. Okay? We need to understand that it is time that the European stand on his own words and let him eat his own food. And it's time for us to eat ours. And it's time for us to live according to the instructions that we were given. And we need to interpret what Moses in his instructions in the temples of Kemet, what he put together for his people who had been under a certain level of deception for a long time. Deception is what? Is to cause to accept what is false and invalid to be true and valid. So here we are. We need to now interpret properly the instructions on how to eat to live, what to wear to live, how to avoid the curses. Cancer is a curse. Many of these other conditions that come on to us from consuming the chemicals. When I say consuming, I'm not talking about eating with a spoon. I'm talking about putting it on your body and sweating and it get into your body. You're now consuming it. We need to understand that the European days of dominating the world is over. That is why even China is an economic and nuclear superpower. India is an economic and nuclear superpower. What's stopping us from becoming an economic superpower? We got something more powerful than nuclear weapon. The truth is the greatest weapon in a freedom struggle. If you're trying to get free and you got a bomb and you blow it up, you're dead. You're not free. So truth is the greatest weapon in the freedom struggle. And that's what we are calling all of our people right now, to consume truth. Don't consume chemical. Consume truth. Don't consume lies. Lies weaken us. Lies weaken us. Truth strengthens us. So if we draw the enemy of truth into a battle with truth, we don't even have to fight. But again, we've been taught by them. And this wisdom that I'm sharing don't come from them. So I'm going to go to Leviticus 19 again, because Deuteronomy 6:4-9, which teaches us that we're to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, all thy might, okay? Which was part of the answer that the guy gave Yeshua. But Leviticus 19 is where he also said, and love thy neighbor as thyself. Where does that come from? Well, that comes from the Hebrew canon too. So that comes from Leviticus 19. Leviticus 19 and 18. It reads on this wise, it says, thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Lord. So the instructions for loving your neighbor as yourself is found in Leviticus. So when Yeshua says, what does the instruction say? What is written in the law? What is written in the Torah? He's referring him to both the book of Leviticus and the book of Deuteronomy for those instructions in how to attain this eternal life, everlasting life. When does it begin? It begins when you receive this, okay? So now, Yeshua, in answering his question, the man asked another question. And he said something like this. You know, if you've been walking down the street, your homeboy sees you, and you said, love thy neighbor as thyself. And he says, well, who my neighbor then? In GOLAH, that's how we would say, well, who my neighbor then? Who is my neighbor? And he had an answer for him. And without reading it, I'm going to just go into it. He gave him an example. He said, a certain man was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. Yerushalayim. Jerusalem means city founded in peace. To Jericho, a land of confusion. Okay? This instruction, this lesson actually covers multi generational, it's a cosmic lesson because it's not just for then, it's for thousands of years later. Jerusalem is a place founded in peace. Salam comes from shalom, peace. Yeru, city. Jericho, land of confusion or warfare. We know of the Battle of Jericho where the priests marched 7 times around Jericho and blew the trumpet and marched 7 days, and the walls came tumbling down. So now, the instructions on not working on the Shabbat. There were 7 priests, and I'm not dealing with the lesson yet that Yeshua taught and answered the question about my neighbor. I'm dealing with something else right now, because there are those who say, well, you know, if you work on the Sabbath, the law forbade working on the Sabbath. Okay. Well, during the Battle of Jericho, 7 priests, and they know the law, they teach the instruction, marched around the walls of Jericho 7 times, 7 days, and then they blew the horn, 7 horns, and the walls came tumbling down. So if they marched for 7 days, one of those days was the Sabbath. That should put an end to the thing about, well, you can't do it. And they didn't do it because God was angry and God would do this or do that. Again, we need to give the European his interpretation of these instructions back, and then we can live more abundantly and we can learn how to fight this bandit, because those 7 priests didn't stop marching because the bandit told them not to march on the Sabbath. They marched and they fulfilled the objective. Now, going back to Yeshua and those instructions, Yeshua said, a certain man was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among thieves. They beat him up, left him wounded on the side of the road. They robbed him of his raiment, meaning his clothing. So they beat him up, left him naked. It has multiple meanings. They said a priest came by and passed him by on the other side. Along came a Levite who showed sympathy, but he kept on going. Then came a good Samaritan. The Samaritan picked him up, anointed his head with oil, put him in his beamer or his donkey or his horse or his beast, took him to the inn and left him there, paid for his stay, and said, if there's anything left to be paid, I'll pay it on my return. And then he said, which one did the neighborly thing? Now, if everybody is your neighbor, he wouldn't even have to tell them the story. He'd just say, everybody's your neighbor. But no, the priest that passing by on the other side was not their neighbor. The one that showed sympathy and kept going was not your neighbor. The one that picked them up, okay? And there's further teaching that not only did they pick them up, but there was a certain grip required to do that. And that grip is called a lion's grip. So that grip means you need the wisdom of the Lion of Judah. You need the instructions, divine instructions on how to lift someone up from a dead level to a living perpendicular. Okay? It's called from a dead level to a living perpendicular on the square. Some people know what I'm talking about. Some don't. But just know for sure that to pick him up, you have to have the wisdom to do that. And then it said, he anointed his head with oil. Now, some people consider oil, symbolic of, they put it on there to heal him. But oil is symbolic of wisdom. So not only did you pick the people up, because the man is actually referring to a people who were picked up and given a certain knowledge in their head. When you anoint the head with oil, you apply wisdom to them. And then when you take them to a particular place and leave them there, and then upon return, you pay whatever is owed, referring to the Messiah coming back. We should interpret that as when we were taken to a house of worship and a price was paid, as they said with Yeshua, because Yeshua was killed by the Romans, even though they say the Jews killed him. You need to give them that back too, because the Roman had absolute authority. But they not only killed Yeshua, they killed his brother, they killed all of the apostles that followed him, but they didn't kill Paul, because they protected Paul, because Paul did exactly the opposite of what Yeshua told him to do. Yeshua said that there would be people coming and would say that I am the Messiah. They would be coming and they would be deceiving the people. Paul came right along and did the same thing. And most people who are so-called worshiping Jesus, they've been worshiping Paul from day one. And that's another story. But suffice it to say that the instructions that are found in Deuteronomy and Leviticus and then elsewhere, these instructions are so very important, especially in this time now. And we're going to continue to go deeper into Igala Eschatology and interpreting the wisdom as Yeshua would want us to interpret, because most of the churches are so far away from the teaching of Yeshua until when and if a person appear on the scene, and if Yeshua comes back in the person and says, what are you teaching my people? Because I didn't teach him that. That's what he would have to say. He don't know you, because the people are so far away from what Yeshua taught. And at the end of European world dominion, knowledge would be increased, meaning we'd have to give back this European all of the deception that he's given us so he can swallow it. So with that, we'll at a later time be going back into some more of Igala Eschatology, but suffice it to say that we are at war and have been at war in 9 areas of human activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And we'll be continuing on this subject so that we can be victorious in this war that we're embarked on. With that, thank you.